Okay, so let's show a quick solution to this problem. Now here I've actually made a bunch of the decisions for you, like what your decision variables are going to be, the number of type 1 things to make, the number of type 2 things to make. It's very easy if I hadn't given this to think maybe my decision variables would be how many units of fabric to use and how many hours of labor to use and how many units of insect repellent to use. And it takes some thinking to see why one way of decision variables is better than the other. And we're going to be doing that with some future problems, but right now we're just working on typing in Excel formulas and running solver. So I'm going to say my objective function is the sum product of those cells. And I know I'm going to want to copy and paste this formula farther down. So I'm going to put this dollar signs. I can put them on the rows here, so when I copy down, the rows don't change. And then comma, and then these values. I'm only doing 2 decision variable problems here because they're simpler, but like I said, you can have 3 or 4 decision variables or even up to 200. And then I hit enter, and let me play around with this. Like if I make 10 of those, do I get a reasonable answer there? Yes, I do. So that's good enough. And then here I could retype the sum product like this. I'll show it. So this, and then another way to put in the dollar signs to lock things. On a PC, you press the F4 key. That puts in the dollar signs. On a Mac, it's Command T. Then press comma and those, and hit enter, and then fill that down. And notice I don't have less than or equal to or greater than or equal to here. That's because I want to make a point about something in just a sec. But at this point we're ready for solver, so I'm going to go up and do solver. And oh, I guess I already had it set up, but let me pretend I didn't. Okay, so what's my objective here? It's the orange cell. That's where that color coding comes in handy. Do I want to maximize or minimize? I said here maximize, so maximize is good. What are my variable cells? The Verde ones here. I'm going to add some constraints, and I want these, and I want these. And now how about, do I want less than or equal to constraints or greater than or equal to? Well, again, these are resource constraints, so I have upper limits on resources, so I'm going to use less than or equal to. So my point here is, all that matters to solver is what you put in this little option here. It doesn't care what signs like greater than, less than you have here. You could have words here. It won't compare things. These blocks don't even have to be next to each other in this configuration. This block can be way over here. I wouldn't recommend that. So my point is of not putting this. What matters is what you put here, not what you type there. So I'm going to say OK. Non-negativity makes sense here. We can't make negative things and use those to get extra resources. And again, it's a linear program, so I'm going to use simplex LP. So I'm going to hit solve. It says solver found a solution. All constraints and optimality conditions are satisfied, so that's great. And does it look like I got a reasonable solution? I'm not making millions of things with only small amounts of resources. I'm not using more than any of my resources here, so it looks good. All right. One other big thing about setting things up in Solver, here I already set it up for you, but notice that everything related to type 1 nets is here in one column, and everything related to type 2 nets is in its own column. What I'm not doing is something like this, where I have type 1 here, but then type 1 over here, for example. Or if I had these over here, I'd have like some stuff for type 1 here, but then some other stuff for type 1 over here. It's really best to let everything be all in the same column for type 1 or decision variable 1, and the same thing for decision variable 2. Not that Excel really cares, but just for our own human interpretation of stuff. So if you haven't already, go on to the next tab where you're actually going to have to kind of formulate it mentally, mathematically before you set up anything in Solver, which is a big challenge.